What is going on, guys, and welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be breaking down the TERRORBLADE versus SPECTRE matchup. This was a highly requested matchup in the comments section, so definitely let me know what other matchups you guys would like to see next. Overall, this is a pretty SPECTRE favored matchup just in general because of the itemization option SPECTRE definitely goes for, because naturally SPECTRE is a Radiance Spire. Radiance counters TERRORBLADE just because it burns through the illusions. You also have Desolate, which is pure damage, which is always very good, especially against high armor heroes if you're able to catch them alone. And you have Dispersion, which means TERRORBLADE will be laying into you, but you're going to be doing so much damage to him, which overall has always been pretty strong. And SPECTRE used to be really bad against TERRORBLADE just because of the item timings and the amount of time SPECTRE would take to actually get online. It would be way too long and the TERRORBLADE would be able to run over the game a lot faster, as he can definitely farm way faster than the SPECTRE can. SPECTRE is one of the slowest farmers in the game, even if you max dagger. Unless you have a hero like Caudle that can just help you spam consistently those daggers, then you can farm a little bit faster, but it's still not that strong. Dagger is not really one of the best farming tools out there. TERRORBLADE can just farm with his illusions. He can split push around the side lanes and do a lot more, while SPECTRE needs to get his Radiance online. He needs to go for his Manta, or an item like Blade Mail helps him farm a little bit faster, but it's not that big of a deal. So overall, the TERRORBLADE will usually have much more farm. If they're a decent TERRORBLADE player, they're definitely going to outfarm the SPECTRE every single time. Even when the SPECTRE has Radiance, you just have more ability to split push around the map, especially when TERRORBLADE gets a Manta. He's able to push the side lanes, he is able to push the jungle and do a lot more things, and he's able to fight a little more consistently. But ever since they changed SPECTRE's level 6 to being Shadow Step, which is on an 80-second cooldown at level 1, but a 40-second cooldown at level 3, which is so strong. It's such a big change for this hero. He can play at a much faster tempo, and I think Shadow Step is just such a great ability for SPECTRE to have early on, as he's able to go for these solo pickoffs and join his team whenever he wants. Even though Haunt was able to do that, Haunt was always an 180-second cooldown, which was extremely long, so you definitely needed to make sure you were going to use Haunt and get actual value out of it. Otherwise, you're going to be away from the fight for the next couple of minutes, and it really felt really bad for a hero like SPECTRE, which needed his ultimate to be able to join the fights, as he can split push around the map and join the fights whenever he wants. It's one of the only few heroes in Dota that can actually play away from his team, and it actually benefits him greatly, as he can join the fight whenever he wants. The item build for SPECTREs nowadays is definitely Radiance going into Manta, and they usually go back for Aghanim Scepter or Scotty. It honestly depends on what you need, but the Aghanim Scepter is always going to be really strong. It gives you access to Haunt, and Haunt has always been a really good ability. And in the late game, you can just pocket a Refresher Orb, and it's going to be pretty strong for you to have double Haunt. It's always going to be good because Dispersion is such a good tool. In general, if you have a really good lane support, I definitely say for SPECTRE, supports like Treant Protector, which is really strong in the meta, and Warlock, which is also really strong in the meta, are supports that are really good with SPECTRE, as SPECTRE is not a very aggressive lane hero. He's not a lane dominator, and he really doesn't do a whole lot of damage to offer some kill threat into the lane. If you're able to get a bunch of sustain from heroes like Warlock and Treant Protector, it'll keep you in lane for much longer, and you will actually be doing more damage because of Desolate. You end up maxing it out. I definitely think that's the best skill build. I would never max Dagger, just because Dagger is not that strong and it costs you a lot of mana, which usually you don't have unless you go for an item like Falcon Blade or a Soul Ring and items of that nature, which definitely just slow your timings down. And anything that will slow down SPECTRE is not a good idea. But if you plan on being really active with your team and you have a really active lineup, then definitely max out the Dagger, as you're going to be able to close the gap. You're going to be able to do a lot more damage and be able to trade with those kills and get a lot of value from your Shadow Step. So it definitely depends on the game, but in general, if you feel like it's going to be a really slow game, then just max Desolate. It's going to be a lot stronger than your Dagger, and it's going to overall pay itself off in the jungle, as those creeps are going to be taking that little bit of extra chip damage. You could also go for items like Diffusal. You can go for Echo Saber as well. Harpoon has always been pretty strong for SPECTRE, especially for you to close the gap on these squishy supports that can get away, or heroes that tend to buy 4 staffs. If you dagger them and you harpoon them, they're probably going to die. But in terms of the actual matchup itself, if they go head to head, usually the SPECTRE will end up winning, just because of the nature of Desolate and Haunt and Shadow Step. There's just a lot of illusions for TERRORBLADE to clear through. He just doesn't have the ability unless he's out farming you super hard. Other than that, normally you are able to kite away and kill his backline before he can do anything, as TERRORBLADE, even in meta form, is very strong, but he's not really able to protect his backline backline as easily, and the Spectre can just rain in, kill his backline, and slowly start to chonk him down. And one of the really good things TERRORBLADE has going for him is Sunder, and if he uses that to help out his teammates, definitely capitalize on that and get rid of him a lot quicker in the fight. But you need to be careful, as TERRORBLADE can start dishing a lot of damage even to a hero like Spectre, who is super tanky. You need to watch out, especially with a Scotty or Daedalus timing. Those are pretty strong timings for the TERRORBLADE. He can definitely do a whole lot of damage to you, especially if you didn't go for the blade mail build, which can definitely keep you a little bit more protected, as he's gonna think twice before hitting you so much. If you watch out for the Sunder, or you make sure he uses it, then you should definitely feel a little safer around the map. And normally TERRORBLADE is not your main target. Your main target is the backline. It's those squishy supports that you can get rid of nice and easy. Those are the heroes you tend to go for, and the TERRORBLADE can't really do a whole lot about that. So you can just pick him off later, or get your team to set up onto the TERRORBLADE. You guys could definitely deal with him. Overall, this matchup has always been pretty Spectre favored, especially now that the Spectre can actually push tempo, which is a hero that was never really able to push tempo. When they added Shadow Step as Aghanim Scepter upgrade, it was a really big deal, because Spectre was always this 45-minute hero, and now he was more like a 30-minute hero or 25, which made a really big difference on how you can pick this hero. And you can actually pick it with some fast-paced lineups, because it was able to get that scepter so quickly. But now it's pretty much the same thing. You don't really need your Aghanim Scepter. You don't really need a Radiance. You can just go Echo Saber, Blade Mail, and just start fighting non-stop with your Shadow Step, and you're going to be doing a hell of a lot of damage and be able to fight with your team pretty consistently. One of the areas where TERRORBLADE definitely beats the Spectre is in tower taking potential. With his illusions and metaform, he can do so much damage to towers and objectives. He could definitely do a lot more damage around the map than a Spectre will, no matter what, unless you go for the Desolator build, which isn't really popular anymore. So it's definitely not an option for most Spectre players to be going for this kind of build. It's definitely very high risk and not very much reward, as Deso is a really strong item, but it doesn't really suit Spectre that much, as he doesn't have really good attack speed like a Phantom Assassin would. So you're not going to get as much value from the Desolator as you typically would. Items like Basher and Satanic and Heart are always going to be really strong on a hero like Spectre, as the longer you can stay alive in the fights, the more damage you're going to be dishing out with Desolate, as your illusions are going to be tanking a lot of damage, and your main hero is very tanky. So the longer you last in a fight, the more you're going to accomplish with that. So play with heroes like Treant Protector and Warlock. It's going to be very good. They're both very team fight oriented heroes, and they have a lot of healing that will keep you alive in those very sticky situations. Definitely let me know what you guys think about this matchup. I definitely think Spectre wins probably 6 out of 10 games. Definitely still based on skill. The TERRORBLADE can definitely take over the game. It's very team dependent, because if the Spectre gets really heavy pressure and is not able to get those items online, the TERRORBLADE will naturally already out farm you. So catching up is going to be very difficult. And if it's a good TERRORBLADE player and knows how to push his objectives and knows how to play the team fights, he is definitely gonna do a lot more work than the Spectre, especially in the early game. But when it comes to the mid to late game, I think the Spectre's got it, especially if he can keep up with the farm. He is going to be able to destroy the TERRORBLADE and just be able to man up with him and do a lot of damage. Overall, this matchup does not benefit the TERRORBLADE. So if you do see a TERRORBLADE, definitely pick a Spectre. It's one of the better matchups, as you have that little bit of pure damage coming out from Desolate, your natural Radiant Spire, so you're able to get that extra evasion, and you're able to deal with the illusions nice and easily. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this and learned a thing or two. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.